begin. So we're going to wait a little bit longer. Hello, Luc, as well. So we are 13 at the moment, and recording has started.
Great. So this is the moment for everybody to make sure you have a drink in reach, so you don't dehydrate during our presentations. Activate your camera in case you later on want to join. So you will not be joining us on stage, but it's very easy if during the live Q&A at the end of the session you want to ask your question on, I would say, on the screen. Then it's a good time to already activate that. No worries, as I said before, you will not drop on scene here. It's something we need to invite you for. You can raise your questions also in the room chat. I see many of you have already found this. So hi to everybody there. And we will, for the speakers, introduce all of them with their LinkedIn profile. So feel free if you want to reach out to them later on to use that channel as well. So today we are united here to talk about AccountTech, I would say the coming together of the accounting world and the fintech world, which are intermixed. We see it as a nice part of our whole ecosystem in fintech, where the document part of everything financial, the accounting, transactional come together. So the document and the transactions, which have been promised for years to be the holy grail of the part in fintech where they come together. And we do see a lot of initiatives now taking up more speed, and that's actually the speakers we have for you. Martin will give an introduction. He's already on stage here. We have Andries Geerts from Octopus, Tom van Honen from Clearfact, Isabel Group, and Alessandra from Recover, who will share how to get paid if your invoices stay open for too long, and how to have a good process for that. So without further ado, and with the participants that are already here, welcome to everybody. You can use the public chat if you want to have a question in between. I will relay that to the speakers, and at the very end of it, we hope to have a nice group discussion too. So for the ones who joined just late now, you can start activating your camera for that part as well. So without that, many thanks for everybody who's here already. And Martin, I would say, can you start enlightening us first, very short intro about yourself, and that what does this AccountTech stand for?
I will do it. I will share my screen. I have to do some steps. And then I want to... first of all, thank you everyone that I'm invited to give a keynote on this FinTech Belgium event. I hope you can hear me all.
Yes, we hear you fine.
Yeah, perfect. So I had let's say, I thought about, okay, what I'm going to tell. It's about FinTech, AccountTech. And one of the things I thought, how innovative are we as accounting industry? And that's where the word is AccountTech exists from. Or are we taken partly over by fintechs in services? That's what I want a little bit to talk about, what I'm thinking as an advisor in innovation. And I will go to the next slide. Who am I? I'm Martin B. I'm an advisor in innovation of 216, which is a data-driven accounting firm in the Netherlands, which I advise with nice tools, nice views, and sometimes to my colleagues a little bit scary, because what is Martin now coming with new kind of innovation, and I have to be very careful with the time, because there's less time and much work to do in the accounting industry. I'm also involved as a digital expert in two pan-European accounting lobby organizations like the AVA and the Accountancy Europe. And I'm also, let's say, active in accounting of AccountTech in the Netherlands. I got 20
You're going to
minutes.
give us you have 20 minutes to enlighten us about the current state of things in the Netherlands, what you see happening in Belgium and Europe at large. So we look forward to that.
Let's say I will talk a little bit about what's happening, because it's viewed in Belgium. So first of all, what I really ask myself, and there's always a discussion, does accounting tech, because I noticed that on fintech or AccountTech even exist? Now, the best way to ask is the one and only environment who can tell you if you are exist, and that's Google Trends. Now, I can say so that accounting tech, AccountTech, we have in the Netherlands, we have AccountTech with 2 T's, doesn't exist. Nobody's looking at it in Google. And if you look at fintech, it's really, let's say, hot. And I choose it for Belgium. It's Netherlands, but it's Belgium. That gives a little bit, let's say, the things we think that AccountTech is really there. Now, we are, I think, big part of fintech, but we have an industry who is really trying to evolve. And what you also hear in our industry are several terms. I will go first of all, innovation. We have innovation. I call myself advisor innovation, but what is innovation? And innovation is sometimes misplaced use. In my case, innovation is, let's say, if you're accounting software and you have a strategy, and in your strategy you change that, you say, oh, I'm adding payroll to it. That's in my case innovation. But if you go from on-premises to cloud, like as an example, I see it more as evolution. And you see a lot of software suppliers are using innovation, which is good but in my case, it's mostly, in my view, it's evolution. Even with process optimizing, using machine learning to automate. In my case, is that the evolution is going on because you have the same strategy, you have the same goal with your solution, and also that's as a big difference. And then you have also disruption, and I used it when I started at 216 in 2016. Also, I said, well, we're going to disrupt the market. Well, an accounting firm disrupting something, that's I think an utopian thought. But I go further in my presentation. I will just focus on some real disruption, which is really let's say ahead for Europe. But let's say we have to be very careful in what you use in innovation, evolution, disruption. And you can use it, but for me as an advisor innovation, there are clear differences on that. And therefore, even for 216, when I advise a new application or a new software supplier, and let's say, due to cloud, I can shop everywhere I want. So I shop a lot of times in Belgium. So we have introduced Silverfin in the Netherlands. We have Toco introduced in the Netherlands. So that's the nice thing, that have some neighbor nearby a country who also have the Dutch language in the portfolio, and also we have the same kind of working in the accounting industry. So that makes it very interesting also, even with some of the speakers we also are talking to, but there's a lot of opportunities over there. One of the other things I also see is AI and machine learning. There's a lot of talking about AI, and AI is, and let's say I made the mistake myself too. And when I spoke 2 years ago to really smart guys and smart girls, and I said, well, I want to put AI into our accounting firm. They were laughing. They were saying, okay, do you have enough data? What do you mean? Yeah, we have data. And I shared them some data. I said, yeah, that's only 100,000. We need millions of data to do some AI and to use AI. So in that case, I was really, let's say, waking up. Yeah, but what are we doing then in our industry? Yeah, you are using machine learning, and that is something that is also, let's say, the holy grail for the current situation. A lot of solutions that we could do repetitive work. You see it in the accounting industry. You see it also in the payroll industry. If you have repeating work, you can use machine learning, and machine learning is very interesting because this gives us also as users also some time if an application implement machine learning. And then you see that also now, we call it robotics, robotic accounting. There are a lot of words on that, but that's machine learning, and that's good, and we like that because as I said, in the accounting industry, we have less time, a lot of repetitive work. We have, let's say, the VAT return. We have to do the bookkeeping. The customer, especially now in COVID, they want an up-to-date bookkeeping system, or people who are doing the bookkeeping, they have less time because they have already busy working. But with machine learning, there's a lot of opportunities. So I really like the trend, what I see in a lot of applications, that they implement machine learning, which gives us as industry extra time to spend more on our customers. And that's also very interesting. What I also see is a big trend, and we see it also in the Netherlands. And the funny thing is, I made this presentation also for the university in Groningen to students, and I explained a little bit about what's happening in the Netherlands. But during the time, that was beginning of 2021, I noticed that the same is happening in Belgium. what is happening at this moment, that big equity parties like H Capital and KKR, and H Capital is, let's say, behind Visma. They have funded Visma for a big part, and KKR is one of the biggest investors in Exact. And they're buying a lot of software in our industry. And if you look in the Netherlands, those two are the biggest, because Exact bought a lot of big players which are used in the accounting industry, and Visma did the same. And they all are now moving also to Belgium. You see that they bought Winbooks, Exact. They acquired another solution in Belgium. Also Visma, Cineton, which is a big player in the accounting industry. Visma took also Yuki, Admisol, and there's maybe more, let's say, acquirers ahead. But what's the impact of that? And I'm really critical on that. And I made the mistake to say, yeah, but if you look further, H Capital and KKR are the owners of the data. Now, that was a very, let's say, I cannot use that because I did it and I was a little bit attacked by legal and also by some people who did acquisitions for those companies, saying, yeah, that's not true. We have no, let's say, saying something about what's happening in Visma. They're doing it themselves. We only invest. But on the other hand, if you look at the bright side, yeah, if you own a company and you own, like in the Netherlands, like Visma, 60% of the software in the accounting industry, you are controlling it. So you are in control. And the worst thing is, for me, it's good for the companies who bought, because they got more money to invest maybe in innovation or in evolution. So that's your choice. But what happens with the smaller ones? Because at the end, it's APIs. The softwares are connected together. So if you are an accounting firm and you have some Visma solutions, and you have a non-Visma solution, and you want to connect it, what happens in the future? Is the data really one-to-one connected, or will Visma say, well, no, we only do a part of it, or we do not connect? They can control. They won't do it at the moment, but they are in control. And we are fully, as an independent accountant, depending on their, let's say, what they are doing for us. But on the other hand, and if I look as an advisor innovation, like furthermore, H Capital owns a company, KKR owns a big investor. What happens if Google says, well, I like the data, I buy one of those companies? Then they control, if that's possible, I don't know if it's possible, they control the accounting industry. I think it won't happen, but I think that in Brussels something big will explode, and a lot of the European Commission will drop on that, and there will be a lot of hustle. But even if it's not Google, it's just, let's say, it's good that it's happening, because there is less capital in the account tech, if I may say so. There's more money in fintech. But accountancy, let's say, many accounting firms are not have the power to invest in let's say, innovation. So they all depend on small players or big players in the software suppliers. And if they have some, let's say, goals of developing, yeah, they ask to the suppliers, and they need to have this funding to build it. So it's a good way that is there, but there's also my thoughts about, okay, what's happened in the future? Are we only depending on one? Yeah.
I was going to say, Martin, it's a fair warning, but it's a very similar one we've seen for the last, I would say, decade in fintech, where the same concern was expressed. Yeah, but what happens if the GAFAs will provide financial services? So far, and for years, the banks were afraid of this. They've teamed up. They haven't disrupted them, to say so. So if you say that was a more profitable industry, so what's your view on that? Because it didn't happen there, and there was more money involved than just accounting.
Yeah, I know.
Do you think the banks did have the capital to invest in the IT to catch up?
Well, let's say the banks are still looking themselves in what direction they are going, and what you see with the banking industry, especially the new players like Revolut, who is a fintech player, who is really, let's say, also focusing on the SME part and they're using really the fintech players. And if you look to the traditional banking industry, even the SML group, let's say, then you see also that you are one way controlled by local regulations, which is really, let's say, sometimes difficult to expand the fintech movement of the bank. But due to what I see to the users, let's say you and me, we all using the telephone, the apps, and more you see the banks are moving this area. They're even moving to the accounting industry. So you see they're looking for ways to, and they also depend on actual data. And I know they did some investments, but they were a little bit hesitating, and they were also early. And let's say also the society was against it. If you see the Netherlands, there was a lot of when ING said, well, we want to do much more with payment data. A lot of people would say, oh, I'm not doing that, and they sent on their marketing. Well, you can opt out as a user, or I think it was opt in more. So you can opt in or opt out, one of the ways. So it was legally correct, but society at that moment were against it. But at this moment, sharing payment data is done by everyone by his mobile phone. So you see that also the banking industry is now quietly moving into this in this space, and had more, let's say, opportunities to do much more with to help the clients or help customers, SMEs. So they were too early. They were too early at that time, but you see now it's more accepted by the society, and that's why we.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Yeah. Okay. So then if you see this, so you also see that there are equity partners going to software. But what we also see is that accounting firms are interesting objects for investing. And why? What I mentioned, an accounting firm they have clients, which is very interesting. They have data, that's very interesting. But they have less capabilities to invest in real technology or innovation, or even to do interesting things, because most of the money is going to payrolling their own employees. But what you see now, and especially in Belgium, that's the funny thing, because that's, as Dutch guy, I always look at what's happening in the world. And I can look for this part really to Belgium. So what we see there is that even Waterland, which is a big investor, also a Dutch investor, they took part in More Belgium, and they were looking ways to make it a very strong accounting firm with a focus on digitalization. And that was for me some new thing, saying, hey, what's happening there? And you also see parties in accountancy. I know those, was there, and there is Baltise. They went in to help this group, and they grow very fast in Belgium. They have also a kind of formula where small accounting firms can really connect to those organizations and adopt to the digital changes. And that makes it also interesting for software players, even small software players, to make an agreement and knowing that their software is used by a larger group of firms. So this is a very interesting development, what I see in Belgium. It probably will happen also in other countries.
But so basically it's consolidation and it's disintermediation. They're reaching out straight to the accounting customers, and they don't stick just to the software, but they want to go all the way and provide the services that are part of the accounting, I would say, deal that we've always known. Yeah.
Yeah, correct. That this is more, let's say, the traditional way to it is more the evolution instead of, let's say, innovation. If you looked at my earlier slides, so it's a good way because it's necessary, because the accountant needs to be relevant in let's say in the chain of data, and this is really because the small accounting firms are not capable to let's say keep up with digitalization. This kind of collaboration or let's say investments is very interesting for us as industry, but also for software suppliers, because there is more cash to spend, and that's also a good thing.
But it also raises the question what's going to happen there, because we will have what next steps on your slide here. Imagine that Winbox customer one sells the company, the service company, also to one of those private equity or software houses, and a competitor not. That means that your competing neighbor is now owned by the software vendor whom you're paying as for just the software, and you keep the customer, whereas your neighbor is fully owned and and they will start competing with you. But the balance will be lost as we know it today, the free choice. So how do you see that evolution of them buying the accountancy firms yet selling their software to the competition of the ones they bought?
If I look at, I go to the basic. This is software, so but if you go to the basic, an accounting firm is doing business with a client, and the client is choosing mostly a person, not the software. So and there you see what I learned in the past also, that I can talk a lot about interesting developments, even like competing solutions, but it's still my colleague who is likable by the client, and when my colleague is gone, he will sometimes the client will follow my colleague, because he looks at, that's my advisor. The tools are tools, they're just helping us. And going back to your question, it's I think more a thing about a digital strategy which you have as a firm, and what kind of, and you need to keep up with this kind of questions. What if let's say I'm using software, let's say Visma is buying More Belgium, and I'm using Visma software as a competitor. If I'm still using Visma, but that I think then you are on the legal lines. What happens with my data is that I think, let's say, be real, they are not sharing the data to my competitor. If they do that, but I will go further on the last slide, but it's a goal for us as an industry to share data, but then anonymous, and then let's say accepted by the customer, because we need a lot of data to help. But data, in your case, if let's say a competitor bought an accounting firm and we're using their software, I think you have to be very clear on that. They will not share my data to my competitor, or even do it in there, because if they do that, they're really closed as a software solution. Because
but I agree with you, they won't do that, but they will use the learning from
of course.
Imagine that one accountant whom they don't classifies a new incoming invoice in a certain category, then the cloud-based platform might use that signal for the next one coming in at another account and say, hey, and somebody classified this as a utility or as a hardware or a rent or whatever.
But that's already
that's I think why they're consolidating. They're consolidating to get all the data to learn the models and automate.
But that's also happening. I already mentioned it. I think 2 years ago when Exact started with their pilot on robot accounting, and I said, okay, then we learn your machine, and afterwards we pay for it, and then afterwards we pay again for it for our knowledge. But that's I think we cannot stop that, and I think that's something we need to discuss with the software suppliers, how you're dealing with that.
And do you find that the accountants and the Belgian accountants are aware of this, that they are basically just learning the algorithm on the better and disrupt themselves a little bit that way? Or do you say no, they know it's coming anyway, and so they have to move up the service level?
They have to move up they have to move up the server level. That's what and that's my opinion, because you cannot stop it. It's only ongoing. Okay, then I'll go.
For the sake of time, yes, I'm the one delaying you. Let's rush to the next slide.
Okay, so I will go fast, because I don't want to keep up. I get some data from the other speakers. So one of the next big things, what's next happening, and there's also to be concerned, is that Amazon and Alibaba are also the next big players in the fintech area. What you see at this moment is that they are already in America, but also in China, are let's say involved in fintech, in financing, even with stock in financing for the customers. But the last thing what happens is that Jeff Bezos invested in an accounting firm, or let's say not an accounting firm, an administration firm, which is a lot of money. So, and it's really it's pilot.com, and that's really, let's say, the next thing what's happening. They are really going to say, maybe in the future, to an Amazon client who's in Belgium, just an SME, and KMO, well, we can do the bookkeeping much cheaper, and we can finance you. And then we are having really an issue as an accounting industry. So I'm not going to dive. I'm still looking. I like it, but also it's also a danger for us because the big platforms are really into our ecosystem at the moment, and the same thing is with Alibaba. It's China, so we are a little bit more, let's say, careful with them. But they're really going on with their cryptocurrencies, which is going to impact us on our side. And especially if you look at my LinkedIn profiles, you see some warning about what's happening in Africa. This is really pushing, let's say, the use of cryptos. One of the other things, because of the time I have to run through, one of the other things which is really important for us still in Europe is to think about what is the impact of crypto, using the cryptos, using blockchain. And I'm involved with the accounting industry in the US, and there we are discussing it, and it's really on a level where I'm still thinking, oh, we are not up to there in the Netherlands or even in Europe regarding these topics, how to deal with cryptos on sales or something like that. And the same happens on financing. I think you all heard a little about how decentralized finance is going very fast. And even the ING said this will be more disruptive. So that means that you have new ways of financing which come from the fintech. And the thing is, how as accountant we're going to put this in our statements, and what are we dealing at, and how is our software supplier doing that with this kind of development? And it's going very fast. So 2 weeks I have a next meeting, and I was really surprised about the power of DeFi used by companies to get more fast capital.
But Martin, I think those statements were for before last week. So the recent volatility after all the positive news about cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin is taking the enthusiasm a little bit away.
So DeFi is still ongoing, and that's in the US. So let's say not about Bitcoin and not about what somebody from Tesla is saying, but this is really still a concern. It's the technology behind it.
Yeah.
And the last slide I want to talk about is very important, is what is the next steps, and also one of the, let's say, key for our next speakers. We as an industry need to share data, and I used a slide from Silverfin where you see some topics which are also very, let's say, focused by the accounting industry. We need small software suppliers, not the big ones, who can help us in unlocking the data, standardization, sharing data within, let's say, the application used to advise your client faster and quicker and also have some insights to the future. Not looking behind, so not doing the statements from 2020, but what is happening in October this year for my client. And I think that's one of the big goals I have, how to unlock this data. If I have only one client from some industry, how do I get more data from this industry to invite my client what's happening in this industry on my behalf as an accountant. So that is a little bit about what I have only 20 minutes over that, but this is what all my thoughts about a little bit of what I'm thinking about fintech, accounting.
It's a great way to open, I think, discussion and our next speaker. So people that like this, they can reach out to you here and afterwards. And I would suggest also, for the sake of time, we're going to move straight to Andries Geers from Octopus, who will show us more I would say, first of all, what he learned in Belgium. So Andries, quickly tell us, what does Octopus do? And then maybe we can start reacting to how you see the things that Martin has just been setting the stage for you.
Perfectly. Hi. Thank you very much for inviting me in the first place. So what do we do with Octopus in Belgium is we try to give a cooperative platform to accountants where they can ask their entrepreneurs, their customers, to work with them. Because in essence today, the biggest problem for an accounting firm in the field today is that all invoices come in at once, which is during the VAT declaration period, and the only solution to solving that is enforcing entrepreneurs to share their data day to day, to make it a mechanism to do so. But in order to do that, they need to want to digitalize, they need to want to cooperate and do so. and that's what we're trying to do, to offer a fast way in for any accountant in Belgium to activate in a way their entrepreneurs. So that's what we do.
Great. So that's thanks for the introduction. And you already triggered the main pain that you're solving to get your customers and their customer, the end users, upload the documents on a continuous basis. So there is not this huge peak in the 20th of every quarter, and then the annual accounts twice a year for those that close. Is that you see the biggest? Okay. So that it sounds so outdated to me.
It sounds outdated. It sounds outdated, but in the end, you see it every single day, over and over again. The problem is still there, and I believe as well. We at Octopus also believe that enforcing all of these documents at the same time using machine learning or other technologies, in essence, does not solve that problem. Right, because still all documents come in at once, and you work from deadline to deadline. And if something learns us about accounting tech, which is something very beautiful, it is that it forces people to share their data on a day-to-day basis. And we're talking about data at the time, and not about documents. Today, we still share documents. That's the problem. We need to share data. Lots of technologies are already there. If the customer wants to do it, we can do it today. But yeah, we need to activate them.
Okay, in the chat you can see that Peter Lambert, a fellow board member who has put together this session, is referring to his own startup. So I'll allow him to do that because he's put a lot of effort in. But so it's not the goal that you all start spamming us with your favorite accounting solution. But you can. We're looking for your opinion, and your questions towards Andries too. So keep using that platform in the chat room for that purpose, please. And so yeah, if you react to, Martin, the consolidation, is it something you see happening? I didn't look into your own capital structure. Are you privately owned? Are you part of a group? Can you say more about that?
No, we're independent and stubborn, luckily. So we're very proud of that.
This is recorded on video.
So no problem. I have absolutely no problem with it. But obviously, we say
go ahead.
No problem. But we see the same thing happening. Obviously, today we're comfortable with the situation where we're at. It's an advantage for us today, being perhaps the only Belgian accounting solution today online. But that's today, obviously. And today we don't see any disadvantages about it. About that evolution, but obviously, as Martin says here, what's going to be next? So that is the big question: what's going to happen inside the market. On the other hand, my experience the last 6 years in the accounting sector is that in a way technology is going fast, and some trends are going fast. However, some things never change and go really, really slow. Think about e-invoicing. Technology that's there forever, but
20 years. Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible. And
I will relay a question from Daniel Verbrugge, and sorry to interrupt you.
No problem.
He states it will require standardization of data formats and market acceptance. How do you think that will pan out? Because Luc Watters follows up on that. We see all these new startups and providers popping up, and then going away again. What's your opinion?
That is a very big problem. Obviously, what's going to happen? How do you get one standard accepted by everyone in that way that you can scale up, really? No matter whether you're a small player or a big player, you can all scale up. I think there are too many people involved, too many different shareholders that get in the way of these standardizations. What will require of it? Who can oblige something like that? For instance, Peppol, who can oblige you to use Peppol and work with real data at the time? There's a government, I guess, but they're not happy to do so. They're not willing to do so. They want it to happen from outside of the market. It's difficult to say. How will it pan out? Obviously, I hope there are standardization will get there very fast. It will be good for anyone to keep everything open, the counter sector open. But it's a tough question. I cannot foresee what's gonna happen, unfortunately.
Okay. Our next speaker is already giving his opinion on this pyramid of account tech firms and consultancy. So I'll let him explore that a little bit further. I shared a little well-known cartoon, like if there's 14 standards and we need a new one, we'll just end up with 15 standards. Yeah. So it's how this often goes. But it also makes, and maybe explain a little bit, what is your success then? How do you explain your success? Because you went into what is called the red ocean market. There were lots of accounting companies out there. They had solutions. How did you manage to get where you are now? What set you apart?
Well, we've been around for 20 years, so that's a long time. We started very small, and we started at a time where they still used floppy disks. So that's a different situation that we're now. What made the difference is
people who know what a floppy disk was, they will now be qualified as being around for a long time.
For a long time, yeah. All right. We, in essence, we started as a solution where entrepreneurs could encode themselves. So we're not talking about data transition, or we're talking about documents that are just encoded on an online platform in the way that the accountant could work on it and use the data that has already been processed, eliminating double work, in essence. Simple as that. However, today we see that obviously a very small part of the market that is still encoding themselves. Today we go to also a digital solution and making sure that the threshold to cooperate with your accountant is lower. So we could always start with any accountant saying, all right, just the one file is okay, the one dossier is okay. The right solution for the right customer. We grew up in a situation where accounting firms have 3, 4, 5 solutions, and we were the solution for the entrepreneurs that then code themselves. So that gave us the opportunity to infiltrate in today over 2,100 accountancy firms, giving us the opportunity to distribute or other digitalization solutions of it.
That's great. And if you look at your market, how many accounting firms are there that you estimate?
That is a very interesting question. That is the also an everlasting discussion. I don't know. The only honest question is I don't know. I think about 6,000. 6,000. I would say 6,000. But what's an accounting firm? You know, there are many persons that are qualified. That's another classification, evidently. So
it's amazing because you, as an independent company, on let's say 30% of that market, and you have huge players, international players, like rolling in here, and you managed to keep your ground. And so that's I would say well done for you. I always admire local companies that manage to fight off the well-funded competition. And it goes a little bit against what was said in the introduction, of course.
No, but
you need a lot of capital, and
But in the end, Martin also has a point. It's something that is evidently happening. However, people have seen things like this happen inside the market as well. Think about Walter Kluwer, for example. They know what can happen the moment and the market realizes, or the accounting firm itself realizes what's happening. And I'm talking about smaller ones.
Can you spell it out? Can you spell out what happened there?
I'm too nice. No, obviously we all know that.
Naming the names.
Taking over different firms and forcing people to work within one family of family of solutions blocks you from any other opportunity that comes along. We at Octopus, we were proud to be open software, accessible to anyone at the time, because it really enables us to be much more dynamic than we ourselves need to be. If there's a wonderful solution coming up that solves all the problems, no problem. Connect. We can solve the problems together.
Okay.
I mean, we just focus on the accounting part, the specifics of that. Legislation changes day to day. In the end, that's also a benefit for a player like Octopus. We are only active in Belgium, which means that for us, Belgium is the only market. But in essence, for any other firm working internationally, Belgium is a small firm. So any new legislation is a problem. It's work. For us, it's not. For us, it's an opportunity.
So the fact that we have such a complicated
which is a
tax
blessing
code,
for
for
us.
It's your business, right? So you're
It's a
very
blessing
happy
for
with
us,
complex
but
code.
no. So yeah, for us it's a blessing, but yeah, I'm very excited to see what's going to happen. But what I truly believe is that fintech and the cooperation of fintech and accounttech just offers the market more possibilities to solve the actual problem, which is still today on the ground. That is all documents coming in at the same time. That hasn't changed.
So it's documents and transactions and marrying them in an automatic way, and then provide high value added services as an accountant on top of that, and no more the encoding of that and classifying it. Yeah. Okay.
Because
great.
in
Andries, I'm giving you a closing
sentence. It's time to round up, I assume. No.
Sorry,
what I was trying to say is that I also do not believe there's really a problem with reporting or post accounting services. I mean, the advice is there. The real problem is how we get to the advice, how we process a dossier. That's the real issue in the end. Many entrepreneurs also do not need every detail, every specific end of a special report. Many don't care. Some do, but that's specialization at the time, and specialization you see today as well, also in accounting firms. So I don't believe in the long run. Many things will drastically change suddenly, perhaps in a very, very long time. But as you said, 20 years for e-invoicing technology, well, another 10 to 20 years is going to be different. But yeah.
Okay, right. We look forward to that, and we're gonna introduce Andries.
Yes.
So thanks for this, and introduce Tom van Hoorn, who was already agreeing with you on the number of 6,000 as a market share. So Tom, now that we have heard from your industry colleague at Octopus, how does Clearfax maybe give us a very short introduction on Clearfax Isabel Group, and then we go to the subject matter of accounting and fintech. So go ahead, the floor is yours.
Sure. Thanks, Ton. Thanks for having me. So let's maybe if I have to summarize Clearfax, I'd probably do it in 5 sentences. So the 5 main functionalities we offer. First is a bit of a commodity nowadays, I'd say. So that's input channels. So we offer to SMEs, we offer a number of input channels in which they can place their documents, the documents Andries was referring to. There's a mobile app, there's a Dropbox integration, and so on and so on. So end users can easily put their documents on the platform too, and this is the interesting part. I think this is where the interesting part starts. At least is our booking factory. So we've been talking about machine learning and AI and so on, etc. But what we do in the booking factory is we try to predict how this invoice needs to be booked, right? So based on all the historical data we have as Clearfax, we say, okay, this document will probably need to be booked on this GL account with this VAT code, etc. So that's the place where the magic happens. And then the third step is we're not an accounting software ourselves. We link or we integrate with 6 of the most used accounting software platforms we think in Belgium and Luxembourg. So typically it's Sage, Exact, Winbooks, a couple of Kluwer products and Wings. So that's part 3. We connect, we integrate with accounting software. 4 is we give accounting feedback. So all the data we find in the accounting software, we give it back to the SME so they can have an up-to-date view on how their company is doing. And then the last but not least part would probably all around payments and approvals. So we offer a function to start preparing your payment, to have approval flows and so on. And why do we do payments and approvals? It's a bit to address the same problem Andries was referring to. It's we really want to have a portal that gives added value to the company, to the SME, because if they have to go to a platform that's their accountant's platform and it's just they have to do it because their accountant asks it, it's not enough. The SME needs to find their own value on the platform, and then they'll start putting more documents on there.
Maybe a sensitive question. Andries just gave numbers about the number of customers. Can you give a reference for ClearFacts? How many accountants and companies you serve? Yeah.
Sure. So in terms of accountants, we're serving around 300 accountants. So we still need to catch up with Andries. In terms of companies, we have around 50,000 companies we serve today. Yeah. Yes, it's been growing quite aggressively over the last years, I'd say. So
but it also shows the value of your tool, that because you can make this I would say suggestion on where to classify, the more companies you have, the more diverse the data set, the better your algorithms can come up with a good suggestion, right?
Yes and no. It's something you would say it works, but it's still in Belgium. There's a lot of different accounting schemes that are used. So a GL account for accountant A, or even for accountant A, company number 1, can be different from
company based.
So it's lots of the algorithms are company based. Yeah. So we're starting to move towards more generic algorithms, but to be honest, it's not that easy, because we have to serve all these different accounting firms behind. So most of the logic we have today is still company-based.
To me, that's a great, interesting learning here, and it also shows how hard it will be for large companies that will come from abroad with a standard solution. It will not fit the way they work now. Of course, the question is, should they all have a different scheme or not? That's a different discussion. But if they want to continue to work as they do today, there's a huge hurdle to change. That's what I understand here.
True. And I think it will be interesting to have maybe in the next session, I don't know, Martin's opinion on how RGS in the Netherlands is working, because I think it kind of tackles this problem, but it's not the holy grail of all solutions.
We'll keep that for the end of the discussion. Maybe can you tell us a little more about the good data use case? Like, let's start with a company. What do you solve? What helps them in using ClearFacts?
Okay, so for a company or an end user on the platform, I think the main question we answer is, how am I doing as a company? How are my numbers evolving? What is my cash situation? Am I making profits? Am I spending too much? That's number one. A second one is, did I submit all my documents? It's a use case. My accountant is asking me to submit all my documents every quarter. Did I submit it all, or are there some financial transactions that don't have a document? And the third one is, well, we offer the data to execute those payments, right? So for a company, they just want to know, how am I doing, and some basic administration tasks. I think those are the most important use
cases. And if you look at the accountant, what do you bring to them?
For the accountant, well, first of all, compliance, right? Still the main task, I think, and we're moving away from compliance as the task taking most of the time, but it's still the first and foremost, like it's the must to do, right? The compliance activities. But obviously, the elephant in the room is move towards advice. So the data we offer to accountants and the way we show it to the company can enable the accountant to give some additional advice. But the interesting part, I think, in use cases on data for the accountant is starting to come up, and it's additional services. So an example, and I think Alessandro will talk about it later as well, is it's the recovery part. It's credit management. I think the accountant is placed ideally to help the company in getting sure or ensuring their invoices are getting paid. And so these additional services, this data, I think will become very interesting in the next couple of years.
Okay, and then if you look at other external parties, because that's what we say, you're uniquely placed in the middle of the transactional data, but you have banks and other users and reusers. Like if you ask for a loan, the bank will ask for the latest account numbers that are either with an affidavit or telling whether they're temporary or almost final. How do you cope with that? What do you see about those parties?
Well, I think so. There's a couple of use cases, and there's advice against their services and so on. But I think the most interesting part, if we talk about data, we need to talk about three things in data. And it's first is scope. how much data do I need and what level of aggregation do I need? So, for example, if I want to give I'm a bank and I want to give a loan to somebody, do I really need to know every single invoice, or do I just need aggregated data on the balance sheet, for example? So, so scope is number one. Second is speed. If we look at open data in accounting today, and open data for accounting, probably the best case is what's published at the central bank, right? All the balance sheets. It's very slow. It comes more than a year after the facts. But that brings us to the third dimension, the validation status. This public data today, it's very slow, but we're 100% sure it's correct. And typically speed and validation will communicate with each other. We can give really fast data, like our booking propositions we make in our booking factory. It's real time, but they haven't been validated, so there'll probably be some level of error in there. The question is, for each use case, are you okay with this, or do you really need truly validated data, and then it will be slower.
Plus, you're uniquely placed to know how much between our suggestion and the final, I would say, published annual accounts, how do they correlate? And so you can even know, that might even become a value. Which type of company is really working the books, to say so, to have something very different they publish from what we have been suggesting and seeing all year long? Is this also things that do you see the point where maybe the fiscal tax authorities might come to you and ask about this?
Well, there's a lot of so as you know, there's a lot of software players in this space, and the thing we're focusing on mostly is pre-accounting. So our core business is pre-accounting. I think there's Silverfin has been mentioned. I think they're the experts in everything related to post-accounting. I think maybe Octopus as well. They have the full breadth. But another example, I think, maybe focused on pre-accounting is, I want to do a payment, and this is where fintech and account tech come together. I want to do a payment. I'm using this IBAN number. Am I sure this IBAN number is really linked to this company, or is there some kind of fraud going on? So that's typically the kind of use case where we can use our 50,000 companies.
Okay, and the last question: what are the open data for pre-accounting? Is there any standards there that are widely used, or?
Open data for pre-accounting would probably have to go to platforms such as Peppol, where we share UBL invoices. We'd probably have to go to Coda, right, which is a standard. It's not really open, because you don't want to share this type of information openly, but at least there's a standard in Belgium. So it's probably the closest we get.
Super, Tom. I'm gonna move to the speaker you already sort of introduced, because we've seen that accountants Alessandro Drappa from Recover will be offering recovering services to get those invoices that they used to just compute and classify to get them paid. How do you see this? So, what does Recover do, and how do you see this evolution?
Yeah. Hi, Tom. So quick reminder about Recover. So what we do basically is that we help SMEs to stop worrying about unpaid invoices. So Recover is a tool that automates the whole invoice to cash process. So for starting from the dunning process, even down to the legal step, like the handling of the case by the bailiff or the lawyer. So our clients actually connect this existing software, whether it's an accounting software, invoicing software, or even use our API to do custom integration. And I think we haven't talked a lot about API so far, but all those connection between different software will be absolutely key in the future to really automate a lot of business process. So actually in Recover, our client creates his own customized debt collection plan. And once we automatically import the data from a software, for example, we directly start this dunning process. And if the invoice remains unpaid, you can create a case with the bailiff, with the lawyer, with no commission. Actually, it's included on our plan. So we actually automate a lot of the process of the legal process too, actually, of the lawyer, of the bailiff. That's why we're also sometimes a bit considered as a legal tech. So that's a lot of tech, fintech, legal tech, account tech. In the end, it's only tech, I would say. And in the end, our clients save 80% of the time on spent on the follow-up, and is generally speed up its payment delay by 30 to 40%.
Wow.
So,
and how do you integrate yourself between the customer, the accountant, and then the person that has to pay the invoice?
Yeah. So as I say, generally the client connect one of the tools is currently using. So in this regard, the modern accounting software are really key actors, because they generally are also connected to the actual tool of the client. So and they already have the invoice data, the payment data, and then the payment matching is either done automatically by one of the software, or generally a lot of manual matching from the accountant too. So one of the typical flow that we see on our client base is that the client use an invoicing tool or ERP that is directly connected to its accounting tool, where we cover plugged in. The payment matching, the invoice data are done in the accounting software, and then we automatically import all the overdue invoices. For example, could do only the overdue invoice, and then continue automatically the process of debt collection when needed, of course.
Okay, great. So you've explained the old situation where people came with boxes, and then you had every outdated information. They would just, is it still open or paid? You're automating this, I understand that, but how does this change the relationship between all these parties involved? Because the recovery process didn't used to be helped, and the flow there. How do you see this balance, this new balance between the parties?
But I didn't really understand your question. In that
so
case.
my question is, you are explaining that the relationship between the accountant and the client is changing now.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
How does that impact your business model and between those parties? Like, how do you see it happening?
We see different business models that are now opening, I would say. We see a big wave of modern accounting office that try to differentiate themselves, either because many basic accounting processes are being automated. There's more and more intelligent software like ClearFactor, the pre-accounting software, or even Octopus, that really help those accountants to automate or make much more faster those basic accounting tasks a lot, I would say. And so no, the goal for a lot of new digitalized accounting bureau, I would say, is to open new and provide more services. And that's what we see, that now the outsourcing of credit management is now we see that more and more accounting bureaus are starting to provide this service, because actually they have all the data they need. They have the payment data, they have the invoice data. So they realize that when they plug a software such as Recover, for example, to the accounting software, they can't relieve the client from doing this tedious task of doing the follow-up, and provide a great service and really differentiate themselves on the market. It's a win-win-win situation, I would say.
Okay. Anything about numbers you can reveal about the number of parties using you to do the recovery of open invoices?
So for the moment, we collect about 10 million euros of invoice last month, and we have several dozen of new companies using Recover each month. Enfin, several additional dozens, I would say, each month.
Great.
So you can compute the total number of clients since we have been created.
Okay, great. That's the typical high growth startup answer. Much appreciated. We're gonna close your private pitch here, and I'm gonna ask everybody who has questions. We still have a little bit of time left for the group Q&A, I would say. So the other speakers, feel free to activate your cameras, and Alessandra will invite you back on stage. And everybody else, all participants, you can either use the chat to ask your question, or you can raise your hand, I would say, and come on stage to ask it. So just make sure you address the speaker or let me know who you want to ask the question to, so we can direct them to the right person. So you can raise your hand for that. Otherwise, if nobody has questions, I'll already point you to what Martin has been sharing. We haven't talked much about PSD2 here, which is one of our favorite topics for years already. So while I wait for other questions, can you quickly summarize what happens there for the PSD2 and credit position, Martin? What does the article say that you share in the comments? So it's a question to you, Martin. You're still muted, so you have to unmute yourself, please. Yeah, thanks. Still muted.
Now no more. It was
now
great.
We hear you.
So,
go ahead.
It was great. So I couldn't exit it. So no, if let's say on PSD2, because let's say it was a very hot topic. PSD2, what's going to happen? We see in accounting is that are the smart connections we have now outside the accounting solutions even. But what you see now it happening, and that was the article I was sharing. That was payment behavior, which was, let's say, I mentioned also in my presentation, was in the ENG. ENG was mentioning it, I think, 3 or 4 years ago, and everybody in the Netherlands were, even in the news, it was, what's happening? They can see everything from us. And I know if you look to your own bank data, you can easily see a trend, what you're doing, because you're doing the same way every time. You go to the shop, you're every time the same, that they're doing the same thing. I learned from China how they're doing it. So there's a lot of interesting things you can learn from payment data. And what we see now is that, especially now, the banking industry is want to see earlier signs of, let's say, now what I think what Alessandro is mentioning, so the situation of the company and what's happening, and that you can already see on behavior on data. And Yolt, which is a company, is sharing this data, or he's analyzing the data and giving it back to the ENG. And in my case, it's really, let's say, what's happening to our position as an accountant. If we say, okay, we do it for 750 or even 1,500 euros to make a nice proposal for the bank. And then the bank says, I already know more now than your accountant, because I know on basis of your behavior, and you gave the, let's say, that we may use it, we can see this kind of trend in your company. And that's a little bit, let's say, I'm looking for ways how to connect on that part, because I think still you need an accountant to say something more about that, because there's only one bank, or let's say you have more banks in your as a company. But it's really a fast-going PSD2 development, which I didn't suppose it will happen so soon. That, let's say, the society accepts that behavioral is accepted to be analyzed, because that's really hurting as an individual. So for a company even, they can see easily what we are doing.
Yeah, I'm quickly going to give the word to Tom, because I said he wanted to react on that.
Yeah, exactly.
Tom, go ahead, give your opinion on that.
I think PSD2, and Martin has explained one of the beautiful use cases we can do with PSD2, but PSD2 is a very good example, again, of, maybe I'm hitting the same nail too much here, but it's a beautiful example of fast data. You have it in real time, it comes fast, it's accurate, but it has less detail than an accountant needs, or than an accountant wants to really do his compliance part, do his actual bookkeeping. So we can't just say PSD2 is good or it isn't, or you need to distinguish use case per use case. And I think for SME use cases, PSD2 will be a bliss. I think in account information and payment initiation, there's a lot of beautiful things coming up there. But for the accounting part, there's still a small gap, being that level of detail and that structured way of delivering that we typically have in other standards, such as in Belgium, CODA. But PSD2 will, for the right use cases, be even disruptive, I think.
For the people who are a little bit puzzled here, you can confirm, Tom, that the CODA format is richer than what the banks are today exposing through the PSD2 schemes, right? For
True,
account
yes.
aggregation.
Yeah,
so that's
true.
what we have here. So and again, the CODA is, and correct me, is a Belgian format.
True.
So the international players are not typically including that in their solutions.
That's true, but I'd say there's a number of standards that are comparable to CODA in our neighboring countries. And so they all have their own version of a similar thing. Coda is one format, but as the cartoon standard you had, it's probably the 16th standard in financial information.
Okay, I'm gonna ask Peter Lambrecht on stage because he's a fintech board member, CEO of Oiki Oiki, and so I'm gonna let him ask his question and also take a little bit of the glory for doing all the preparation work and reaching out to all of you, his fellow entrepreneurs in the account tech industry. So, Peter, go ahead. Can you ask your question?
Well, actually, my question is related to the work that we are doing with Oiki Oiki. So at this moment, we have a hard time because what Oiki Oiki does is brings together the PSD2 data, as just discussed, with the documents that are being harvested or retrieved automatically from the different platforms that the user has to get them from. The problem we have to deliver that to the accountant to make it useful for the accountant is we cannot deliver both the document and the transaction that comes next to it at the same time, so that the accountant knows this is the match I have to book already. So that's something that I'm wondering, do you guys know of initiatives on the side of the accountancy software vendors that would allow companies or ERP players, because they also would like to do that, I think, to actually submit the data in a combined format towards the accounting, so that the accountancy team only has to acknowledge and to validate that it's booked on the correct account, or maybe it's booked in the correct depreciation and stuff like that. So that's my question: do you see initiatives there on this side of the accountancy vendors, or is it still something that is open and that's something we as an accounting tech work group within FinTech should work on?
Just a remark, I think that in the UBL format, we can pass on payment information.
Yes.
The only problem is that generally the UBL version of the invoice is created when the invoice is created, meaning that you would need to create a new UBL with the payment information. But actually, it's already possible in the standards.
Yes, but the information that you give is not a reference to the actual transaction.
Yeah, that's correct.
And that's what I'm looking for. I want to actually be able to refer to the exact transaction to make sure that it can be done automatically at that time. Okay, Tom, you have any
we share the same struggle, I think, Peter. Today, Clearfacts doesn't really. We don't process the financial information as you do. We're looking into it. You know, with Oiki Oiki and Clearfacts, there's parts where we're overlapping, and there's parts where we can work together.
I can share with the audience that our integration with Clearfacts has been built, so we are starting the launch in the market as well. So,
yeah. Great, cool. That's good news. So we share this. We share the same issue, and I maybe I would be interesting to hear Andries' point on this one too. But I'm not aware of any initiatives or improvements at the accounting software side to inject this kind of matched logic.
Well, to pitch in, because you asked, Tom. Well, it's a problem, because you got, in essence, you got information from PSD2 data, and on the other hand, accounting software need Coda files, because they need to track and trace what's going on an account using the same type of document. Coda is fine. However, how can you make the correct matching in both systems and guarantee that it's all matched out? Well, I can only speak for Octopus at the time, obviously, but with Octopus, it's perfectly possible as an external partner to send over through API. I don't say how you say it in English, but the afpuntingen. How do you say it?
The matching.
The matching. You can send over the matching. Obviously, if you want to solve the issue you're saying, Peter, is you want to use the actual data, the right transaction. You have no other option than to synchronize the data. I mean, if you want to do that with Oiki Oiki, you need to synchronize the data that is in Octopus or in the accounting software, and make sure that in any time you're working on the same data that is disposable in Octopus. So you have to rematch everything and use data that is coming from anywhere either is it with Okioki and you're filling in the database, you synchronize it with the accounting software, or the accounting software brings in new information, because accountants do really keep on encoding stuff, so that happens as well. You need that information as well, which is not the easiest process, obviously, because many things can go wrong. It's a lot of work. It's not just as easy as I got data, pass it through, and it's all right. You think about what's bookkeeping, what's accounting, what are the rules we're watching at. So that is an opportunity. That is a way to do it. But then again, Peter, you got Octopus, you got dozens of others that you need to implement. So that's a lot of work.
It's not the road we want to go.
No, obviously. But who is going to do it? That's also another question. Who is going to do it? I mean, our opinion as accounting software today in Belgium is that we don't have the time or the resources to connect to ourselves with anyone. It's almost impossible to keep up with technology that's going on inside fintech. So for us, it's always the external partner that needs to make the connection, make the establishment, and is responsible for the quality of that connection. Obviously, that is externalizing many problems. I do realize that, but in a way, there's no other way.
Yeah, but then my question would be: would it be something that you would do if I would say to you, I can give you a CODA file with the transaction data for that transaction, and I can give you the UBL file for the invoice with all the metadata that's there? Would you be able to manage them at the same time? Because that's really what I see as a problem. Is the fact that the handling of both elements or both concepts of the same thing are done like at a different moment in time.
What we also see today, Peter, is that for accounting software, a CODA file is how do I say this? It's a bank statement.
Yeah.
With a begin amount, an end amount. Yeah. The number is the number that it is with the old paper document. It has to match. There are rules we need to follow. Encoding one transaction or a series of transactions in CODA format doesn't make it a CODA file used in accounting software. And that's also a big something that you need to think about. On the other hand, if
I'm just throwing up the suggestion, would that be possible? I have no. At this moment, I don't.
We can process CODA files, obviously. However, it's not plug and play on any solution that is there today, because any accounting solution today offers CODA file encoding or processing, assuming it is one CODA file a day. The number is a number in the because we have our financial journal that needs to be correct.
Okay, no, that's clear.
So,
all right. I agree with you, Peter, that when you have transaction on one hand and the other document like invoices or credit note on the other hand, it's really difficult when you have both information in two different software and that you want to match the same information in the same one, because we have a similar problem. And in Recover, depending on the integration we're working on, but generally the good thing is to keep a single source of truth. And if you consider the single source of truth, like it could be Recover, then the matching that is done on Recover is considered as a master run. And if we import all the info from the accounting software, then we consider it as a single source of truth. And then the payment and the invoice that are matched on the accounting software automatically match in Recover too. But it's true that there is no perfect solution when you have two different software with the same kind of information. You always have differences. Except that if we manage to find another format, the 20th format of the invoice and payment of the year, but yeah, could be.
Okay, thanks a lot, guys. I have another question. I asked for permission, and Alessandra gave me permission. A question for Martin. Martin, if you look at because you are related to Accounting Europe, if you look at the European market, where would you place Belgium when it comes to ahead and behind on digital transformation or digital use of tooling within the accounting world?
Well, I can say so that with my knowledge at this moment, so I'm learning every time from European accounting Europe, but also from the other part. That I think Belgium is in the top 5. If it goes to, if you look also about how, but also Netherlands. So we are, let's say, like a I call it competition. You see the players from Belgium going to the Netherlands. They adopt their kind of technology. So we are quickly do the evolution, not innovation, evolution. So back to my, so you see a big evolution possibility some software suppliers have, and that's very good. If you look, let's say, to other countries like Germany, which is, let's say, data is very strong, and also it's very difficult of the different states. So you see that the culture is different. So it's very difficult to say I'm big in Germany. Now you're big in Bayern, and you're big in, I know, one of the other states. If you look, France, you know better than I do how difficult perhaps it is to be there in the big country. But I think looking at the company, to your question, I think Belgium is really a top 5 player, even with small technology firms. Yeah, so all even with, let's say, non-equity owned like your company, Andries. If you have the opportunity to keep your clients happy with interesting solutions, you're a big player. And if you can collaborate, and that's very important. That's also what I mentioned to you here. You have to, or you go by your own to the market of the big ocean, or you collaborate with other players and make it profitable to use the big base of customers and add value. And I think that's what we are doing in the Netherlands and Belgium together. Therefore, I like it also to step into the Belgium fintech, if I may say so, because I can easily say to some players, please come to the Netherlands, go to speak to the Dutch player. They say, I know those guys. Yes, we can connect. And then I have a very interesting proposition for my clients. And they feel that I'm as an accounting firm delivering something new. But it's not new. It's just using the smart players in the field to connect to each other.
Okay, now which country do you see as a top in Belgium, in Europe? Sorry.
I think still the Scandinavian, because they are digitally, let's say, much further in e-invoicing and that kind of thing. And maybe they are not, let's say, very visual players than Visma, let's say, but they're really, let's say, because of their culture or situation, they are moving very fast on, let's say, and even if you look to Estonia, the digital, how to connect the government, because let's say if we look to the part of our roles, you have, let's say, the software solutions, the accountant, the SMEs, they have to deliver to stakeholders that are, let's say, stakeholders owning some shares, but also governments. Then if you, the government, and I would say then maybe the Belgian government is far, I have to be very careful about Dutch people in the room, but I think let's say the Belgian government has, let's say, more capabilities to do on the digital introduction than the Dutch, even locally e-invoicing. We are lagging behind on government level on that base. So if you compare that, so the users, software suppliers, accounting industry, and as very important, the government, because they are also a very important stakeholder in the digital way of working. I think that Belgium is higher than the Netherlands, because that's one thing for sure.
Yes.
And I have to be very careful, I have to look, but that's my opinion. And that's only my opinion, so disclaimer.
Just to give you an insight, I've been, because at OkiOki we are looking at expansion across Europe. I've been talking to people in France in the past week, and there I must say indeed they are at least 30 years behind when it comes simply to the payment possibilities. I spoke to an entrepreneur who lives in a rural area in the south of France, and he just said, I pay like 80% of my invoices I get, I pay them with checks.
Yeah, no checks. We see it in the US also.
Also, France is not just one market, a
Yes,
bit like Germany.
Yeah.
France is 20, 25. Every département practically its own market.
And I think the importance is if a government can help it really helped also, let's say, the digitalization of everyone in this country, and I think that's important. Therefore, yeah, I see it as a very important player, because without the government, it's nice, but yeah.
Okay.
True.
Unless there are other questions, I would leave Toon to close this session.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.
Yes. So thank you, Alessandro, for inviting me back. As you can all figure out, we have 5 spots on this digital stage, so we have to swap that. And again, the RIB in France is RIB on the check is something we would all love to see go. It's amazing that in 2021 a paper-based payment solution is still ruling the market there. So yeah, again, an opportunity, but definitely not the most efficient way. So thanks, Peter, for putting all of this together. And I'm going to thank all our speakers for the great insight he shared with us here today. I found it very insightful myself. So I hope that the audience and the participants also gain something from this. And we now have a networking session, and you will actually automatically be forwarded there. So if you do have to activate your camera and your microphone, and then we bring it live. So big thanks, Martin, Tom, Andres, Alessandro, for everything you've shared with us and prepared here, but don't go away, stay here. You will be able to exchange more and direct questions with the people going on. And of course, it's okay to eat. This is our lunch break, so don't feel that you have to suit up and appear to be working. This is your lunch pause, and it's one of the last sessions we're doing fully virtual. Keep an eye on our agenda for the next sessions. In June, we luckily are allowed to unite in person again for those that feel comfortable with it too. So look at the agenda. Many thanks to all, and let's move to the networking part. See you there.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You can, hi, so you can go now and join a room. So you can go in the apps and press on breakout rooms, and then you can join whatever room. So if I may, Tom and Martin going in the first, and Andres and Alessandro in the second one, so that there's.
But we have to go to the app tab after this, because I have managed breakouts and broadcast to all rooms. I don't
exactly.
Need to touch those,
and
right?
At the top of the room, you have joined the room. So you just do that.
So, but then we go to apps now. Okay.
There's only one person in room 2, Alessandra.
Pardon?
There's only one person in room 2, I think.
Oops. Okay, I'm going
People are still breaking up.
yeah,
or we
maybe
can
go and they have moved. So just move around.
Fine. So I'm going to we see each other there. Big thanks to you all. I found it really interesting, and we'll stay in contact for the rest. So bye bye.
Super.
Bye.
Quatre et trois. Thank you for listening to me.